All this is Dr. Mobeen Sayed from drbeen.com. Welcome to one more show. So, the discussion today is about the Moderna booster, not the primary series. Primary series has shown to be less effective, quite significantly less effective, even 2 doses. This is the booster, the third dose, which is supposed to be after 6 months of the 2 doses. So that is what we're going to talk about. Let me quickly show you some of the context around this data. And let me actually give you the summary right now. So if you just wanted to hear this much and you wanted to stop, you could. Moderna's booster, yesterday's news is that half dose booster, which is the authorized one, brings the neutralizing antibodies levels, increase them by 37 times, not 37%, 37 times. And the 100 microgram dose, which is double the authorized dose, which is the original primary series dose, if that is given as a booster, it brings the neutralizing antibodies levels up by, I believe, 83%, not percent, times 83 folds. So that is a basic discussion. What I am going to do now is create a context for this data. Number one. Number two, understand what was the trial that they did, what were the results that they did, and what was the process. Then they have a booster with multivalent vaccine in it. That means they have a booster in which there are vaccines for multiple variants. And I want to share those and discuss those with you as well. So if you want to stick around, that will be great. Let's start. So this is drbeen.com. These are the references that are links in the description as well. Maybe there is one or two such links that are mostly news articles that may not be there, but all the technical discussion links are there. Here, Omicron now accounts for 73% of new COVID cases. Now, remember, at this time in the US, there are more than 10 million active infected cases. And yesterday's new cases were about 143,000 or 130,000. So out of those 130,000, 73% are Omicron. So that means about 90-ish or 80,000-ish. So 80,000 of 10 million still is what, 0.8%. So it's a smaller percentage yet, but the newer cases are dominated by Omicron. That is a very important thing to notice. That means Delta is being displaced. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Every country has different dynamics. In South Africa, we're seeing it's a good thing. UK is saying no, it is not a good thing from us. For us, we'll see how it goes for US. Then, for context, I also want to show you Pfizer's and Pfizer BioNTech's message. They said this is December 8. They said preliminary lab studies demonstrate that 3 doses of Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine neutralize the Omicron variant. So 3 doses booster. Omicron variant, while 2 doses show significantly reduced neutralization titer. Now, how reduced? Data indicate that a third dose of Pfizer BioNTech increases the neutralizing antibody titers by 25 fold. 25 fold, not percent. So that is how much is the difference, which means you could reverse this statement and say 2 doses are 25 fold less in producing the neutralizing antibody titers. Although the whole story is not that simple, because once you get 1 dose and then you get the second dose, if you have freshly gotten the 2 doses, then your antibody levels are generally higher. And then as the time passes, they would reduce. So there is a fair question here, and that is, with the boosters, how long after the boosters' efficacy will go down as well? And so we'll find out, meaning it's not just that the 2 doses itself is a bad thing, it's the time span has to be added to the discussion as well. And of course, the mutations of the virus need to be added as well. So continuing, this is the Moderna news. So here is this part which is more of a subjective part and not a scientific part. So that would probably be the only part of my discussion today that would be subjective. Just like I make my own opinions that are subjective, you can ignore them. You could probably ignore this as well. Here they say Moderna said early lab trials show its boosters can raise antibody levels 37-fold and should provide good protection against the Omicron variant. This should provide good protection against Omicron variant isn't by efficacy analysis, this is by their experience or by looking at the levels. Stephen Hodge, Moderna's president, said during a conference call on Monday, Hodge said preliminary data suggests protection by Moderna's booster against Omicron is reassuring and comfortably above the level of breakthrough risk. So they're saying that if the antibody levels are lower, then breakthrough can occur, and this is above that level. I would once again suggest we got to keep adding how long, and we don't know yet. We would find out. And then at what risk as well. What is the risk? What is the efficacy? And then what are the outcomes in a longer term? There was one more interesting thing over here that I highlighted. Studies of US cases of the Omicron variant appear to support concern about weakened protection for those who are fully vaccinated with 2 doses of the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine or one of Johnson & Johnson. Dr. Rachel P. Walensky, CDC director, said on December 10, so again today is December 21st in US, on December 10 that 80% of first confirmed US cases with the mutated virus, Omicron, had been fully vaccinated against the disease. So 2 doses, 80% Omicron. Okay, so this is the context. Then there is some more news over here. This is just for me, that was COVID-19 news. WHO calls for holiday festivities to be postponed. And then there is more, and you can go through them. These are all technical data that are present with the description, various trials that Moderna is doing, and their results are present as well. So with these references, let's start our discussion. My lovely illustrations. So first of all, this is, they call me Omicron. So that is Omicron over here. For some countries, it seems to be a good news. For some countries, it seems to be scary. So 73% of the new infections in the USA are Omicron 1. Then, my apologies, it is a little slow. I had done a lot of drawing today. So welcome to the Humanities Coffee Shop. And here is our coffee mug today with Omicron on it. So here is the process. This is what they did. And what I am discussing is this. This one. I'm discussing this one, authorized booster 50 micrograms. So I'm just going to go over this. So here is what they did. Here is a person who is vaccinated, primary series with 2 doses about 6 months ago. They have their serum now. So let's say if I actually had Moderna and I had it in May. So this could be me. So you take a person who has taken the 2 doses 6 months ago, you take their serum, which may have the antibodies. Now, please remember the serum and the antibodies in a person who's been 6 months ago vaccinated, antibodies should have waned as a natural process. And then picking them up and comparing to the booster is an interesting thing, but just be aware. So we look at their antibodies. What we do is we put these antibodies in a pseudo particle. Pseudo particle means a particle that has the spike proteins that are made up of the SARS-CoV-2s or Omicron spike, but the rest of the particle is a fake particle. And then they see how the antibodies in the serum, they bind with this particle and how do they neutralize. That is how they do in vitro or in lab testing. The only part in this trial is that the serum is coming from people and the antibodies in them are from, of course, from people. But the virus particle and the remaining testing is done in the lab. Then what they did was they picked up the same person. They said, all right, now go get your booster. And some people, so this data has 20 people with 50 microgram booster, 20 people with 100 microgram booster, then another 20 with multivalent boosters. That means one booster containing vaccines or messenger RNA for various kind of um, variants. For example, for Delta or for Beta or for Omicron, not for Omicron though. So they boost the person, and then 29 days after, they take their serum. And of course, I think we can all agree that now that person is boosted and their immune system is ramped up and that is churning and making antibodies. So they take these antibodies or this serum and pour it over the same virus particle, and they see how the neutralization occurred. And this is when they say that 50 microgram dose and the resultant antibodies were 37 times more than the antibodies present here in a person who was vaccinated 6 months ago compared to that person. Then if the person got 100 microgram booster, then they developed 83 times more antibodies, neutralizing antibodies, compared to their serum before the booster, which was after the two doses, 6 months after the two doses. So if I had gotten the booster 6 months ago, they took my serum now, they saw how much of the antibodies are there, I would suspect the antibodies to be low. Then they would boost me, which would ramp up my immune system, and they'll say, all right, here are the antibodies, and then they would use it. There would have been an interesting aspect, and that is to see someone who had the vaccine 6 months ago and then recently had infection as well, exposure, and then measure their antibody levels as well. Of course, we don't want anyone to be exposed, but if they could find someone, it would have been interesting to see how the infection exposure behaves. But anyways, this was the booster trial. So that is one. Now, is it good? You saw the subjective answer that they think it is good and protective. What is the durability? I don't think we have an answer to that yet. Possibly more in women. Women normally continue to have the antibodies at a higher level beyond 6 months, and men usually have the waning more earlier. And then what are the side effects? In the side effects in the paper, they said, and this is not a peer reviewed paper yet, this is not published yet, this is what they are presenting so far. They said that side effects were similar to the side effects of the primary series, number one. Number two, 100 microgram had more side effects. They said slightly more than 50. So that is the discussion. We are done. Now I'm going to go in detail of how various vaccines they tried in this process. So here is what they did. First of all, they took their messenger RNA vaccine 1273. This was the vaccine that was made against the original ancestral or wild type or Wuhan variant. So they took that, and the booster that is approved is 50 microgram of the same vaccine. And so here is the wild type variant. Now, Moderna also have vaccines in which they have the vaccine that is wild type or messenger RNA for wild type, plus they have modified messenger RNA for some variant. So, for example, they have a vaccine that is named 1273.351. This is for the 351 variant, which is the South African variant or beta variant. So they have a vaccine for that as well, or they have a messenger RNA for that too. In this trial, they did not use this directly, but what they did was one of the pieces of trial was that they combined the 1273, that is a vaccine to the original virus, 25 microgram, and then they took the vaccine against the beta, another 25 microgram, collectively becoming 50 microgram. And this is what is multivalent vaccine, that is a cocktail of vaccine. So they used this in this trial. They used pure only for the wild type. They used this one, they called it 1273.211. This is a combination of 1273 wild type plus 351, that is beta. They tried this one. They also have a separate vaccine against Delta. So that is 1273.617.2. So they also took that and created a mixture. So here is that mixture. So what they did was they took original vaccine 1273, which is also used in the primary series being the first two doses. Then they added, I'm assuming, so I did not find this data anywhere for the micrograms, but I'm assuming it's going to be 25 and 25. Then they added the vaccine for 617.2 or Delta. They mixed them, and that became the vaccine that is called 213. Then they administered that as well. So there are about 300 to 600 persons who are going through this trial. However, for this announcement, they took 20 people of each flavor. They took 20 of the 1273 with 50 microgram, 1273 100 microgram, then 1273.211 50 microgram, and 211 100 microgram. And for 617, they only had 100 microgram. So that is how they actually created a group for which they did the analysis. So here is the analysis. We saw that earlier as well. 50 microgram group, 37 times more neutralizing antibody levels compared to where they were before the boosting. 100 microgram, 83 times more neutralizing antibody levels. Then here, as I said, 211, they had two groups here, 50 microgram group and 100 microgram group. That means these two were mixed equally, half and half. So either 25-25 or 50-50. And then for Delta, the 213, I do not know exactly what doses, but it was 100 micrograms. So I'm assuming that instead of 25 and 25, these may have been 50 and 50 each. And once again, because I do not know this, so do not hold me to it, 50 and 50. So here we had the Delta and the Beta. And they used these on Omicron. And they saw that the neutralization was great. So there is a takeaway for me. That takeaway, remember I asked a question yesterday, and that question was, is the Omicron a virus that is now milder, hopefully, and continuing to pray that it is milder, but still out of control from the previous infection antibodies or from the vaccine antibodies, and so SARS-CoV-2? Or is this a new strain, not a new variant, but a new strain? So from this result, I think that it is not SARS-CoV-2 because SARS-CoV-2 generated antibodies are still acting on it and are taking care of it. The only thing is, now this part is my conjecture, and of course that means I can be wrong and you can throw away my statement. And that is why the people have higher rate of infectivity in vaccinated. And I would consider that to be with the first infection as well, previous infection too. And that is this. We know that after the primary series, for example, the antibodies go up, then they wane, and then they stay waned till there is another exposure or a booster where they become increased again, correct? Titers go up again. During this time, when the person's immune system is at rest, not as active, antibodies are naturally not as much. I have shown you this page from the book, Microbiology and Immunology by Abbas, page, I think it was ninth page. So very early on, where he said, 4th month and later, the antibodies start waning. So it is a normal, natural process. However, because this variant is faster, that means if, let's say, we give it 2 days, if you give 2 days to Delta and 2 days to Omicron, Omicron seemed to be more quickly infecting and more contagious. And so that creates upper respiratory symptoms more often. And that may be the reason that we are seeing more infectivity, but that is just my conjecture. The point I'm making is it's not necessary that previous infection or previous vaccines generated cells, memory cells, have stopped working and we need to add new cells. That is not happening. We with the booster, they are just kicking them and saying, okay, wake up and work. And so they work and they produce more antibodies. So this is the discussion. I hope that this makes sense. Uh, my request to everyone is the following, and I have always done this. I've never pushed for vaccine or against vaccine. So please, during these times, coming days, just protect yourself, eat healthy, have your supplements. Um, there are so many vitamins that I've discussed. If you go back in my discussions for last 2 years, I have discussed, I think, almost all the important vitamins and the food groups and the kind of living style that is necessary. The food plate, there is a video I've done that says a food plate for a healthy immune system, which contains the foods that have the vitamins that we need, and so on. So please try to be as happy and relaxed and positive as you can be in this circumstance. Have healthy food, keep your supplements level correct or your vitamins levels correct, and then protect yourself as much as you can. If you are someone at risk and if you have taken the previous vaccines, boosters can actually kick up the immune system and help. So with this, thank you very much. um, Stay safe. I'll see you in a little bit. And please like, subscribe, and share. And if you would like to support this work, there are links in the description. You can buy me a coffee, or you can use Patreon, or you can use PayPal. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon.